Another area that I'm keen to explore with regards to Canada is language, the Canadian language, or languages themselves. And today I'm going to be looking at the Canadian accent. With regards to the language, of course, Canada is a very interesting country in that it has two main official languages, English and French. And although the French is kind of contained to Quebec and New Brunswick, I'm really interested to know how having those two languages affects the overall culture of Canada. How do those influences like seep into each other? That's what I'll be looking forward to investigating in future videos. But today I'm going to be looking at the Canadian accent itself. Now, before I started making my videos, I would have probably just said something like, I thought United States of America and Canada both have similar kind of accents. But when I've been making these videos and just really realising the sheer size of Canada, the varied nature of each province, of course within that there's a huge number of different accents, and they can vary from the really interesting languages on the east coast away to those on the west coast and everything in between. So can't wait to find out more today. We're going to be checking out this video. It's called All About Canadian Accents, and of course about is something that's like a stereotype of Canada. They always say that's what Canadians say, but I've got to say, and I said it on a previous video, that's what we say in Scotland. Like literally we say about, and you say a, like that EH, we also say that in Scotland. So I'm wondering like how much Scottish people have an influence on the overall nature of Canada's language, but let's find out more in this video.
So by far, the most commonly received comments I get on my videos fall into one of three categories. Something about my hair, something about my mustache, or something about the way I say this word. I say about, most North Americans say about. To figure out why, let's take a fascinating look at the world of Canadian accents.
So yeah, again, you just straight away mentioned that about, I guess it's in the title of the video as well, but if you're from Glasgow, where I'm from, and you write the colloquial spelling of how we say these words, we say it like about. Like that is exactly how we pronounce it. And I know that he's saying that a lot of people just pronounce it like about, and there's slight variances of that as well. But I was so surprised when I learned that that's how Canadians say that word, and it's like what we say in Glasgow as well.
The way I talk is a particularly strong example of what people who study this sort of thing call the Canadian raising phenomenon. This refers to the weird way many Canadians pronounce the ow sound in words like house and down and around and south. Ugh, it even sounds annoying to me. The idea is that Canadians have a tendency to raise their tongues in their mouths when they make ow sounds, as I just did right then when I said mouth instead of mouth, which is when you keep your tongue down lower in your mouth. Mouth, 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 mouth. Not all Canadians.
I just want to say, it's with regards to those specific words he was mentioning there as well, it's like down, house. If I was to speak with my Glaswegian accent, it's like we say dun, house. It's like we always do like double O instead of the OU. And I don't think, although it's a stereotype of Canadians, I don't think most of them pronounce it with that strength, that about, the same way we do. I think it's more like about. It's like this other way of pronouncing it. So tell me how you pronounce these words. What sort of Canadian accent do you have?
Canadians speak with Canadian raising, and certainly most don't do it as much as I do, but it is a pretty common phenomenon, as you can see in this montage of clips of random Canadians talking I've assembled.
Are all very unhappy about this. I am absolutely unhappy about it as well.
Stressed out, but don't worry about it, because here's what's going to happen. We're going to get drunk and eat chicken fingers. Me, you, and the old man is going to be here in about 20 minutes.
A matter of planning, and of course being a mom is all about routine.
Well, think about it. 10 years ago, the price of gold was maybe $300 an ounce.
Oh.
So you see some Canadians say it about, some Canadians say it more like a boat, some people say it somewhere in the middle of those two, and of course lots just say it the normal way, about. But
it's funny that even you can take one word and it can be like pronounced so many different ways. Tell me, like, they all had a similar accent. Tell me if that's unique, or that's like something that people all over Canada, or is that a specific province or region that have that pronunciation?
But what's weird is that I feel a lot of Canadians are very inconsistent about this. I get a lot of teasing from my fellow Canadians because I say about instead of about, but I notice a lot of people say route instead of route, and no one seems to care. I blame South Park, which made the whole about thing this big funny joke.
The fuss is about taking our citizens. It's about not censoring our art. It's about what's so goddamn funny?
And made life tough for Canadians like me, who now seem very obnoxiously stereotypical.
Yeah, tell me about that. What sort of impact did South Park have on Canada? Did it have any? Like, I'm not a huge South Park fan, but I watch it here and there, so I get like the characters were Canadian. I've seen that before. But being that stereotype, did that have any cultural impact in Canada? Did Canadians like dislike it? Did they just get on with it and enjoy it? What was their opinions of that, if any?
There's more to Canadian accents than just the pronunciation of one word, however. Like any country, Canadian accents vary a great deal depending on class and region. Most Canadians are probably pretty familiar with this sort of stereotypical lower class Canadian accent, which is kind of this sort of twangy, you know, right? There's this Canadian comedy rap group called B and Steve, and they make YouTube videos where they sing with this kind of accent, and it's pretty funny, as you can see here.
Before we learn to walk, we can cross-check properly. Just rockin' plaid jackets. Chainsaws, we operate them right. Fucking A-right we do, bud. We cut our weight in firewood.
This is, of course, the same accent that was famously mocked in those Great White North segments of SCTV back in the day.
Oh, so that's our topic for today, the Great White North. So, good day.
What an education, eh?
Now
So yeah, tell me how that affects it as well, because obviously being from the UK, class is something that's so synonymous and so ingrained in the British culture, so definitely no matter where people are from, you can tell like a posh accent or you can tell like a working class accent as well. It's very distinct, but maybe to people outside of the country they might not pick up on that the same way as I wasn't able to pick up on that with the Canadian one, unless this guy obviously, because he said that. But tell me if that's something that's very prevalent in Canada. Do you really hear those differences in the accent based on class as well, or is it more commonly just the region?
The most famous regional accent of Canada is the accent of people who live in the far eastern Atlantic provinces of Canada, particularly Newfoundland. This region of Canada was originally settled by a lot of Gaelic-speaking people from Scotland and Ireland, and to this day their accent still has a sort of Irish twinge to it, as we can see in this montage of Newfoundland people talking.
Let's stay is solid and he's able to incrementally increase. I mean, you could end up with a minority Harper government. You know, that would be the worst possible thing.
If you're looking at crew changes, they depend on moving a crew out of here. Some of those people are 3 and 4 days late.
When I arrived at the airport, there was approximately 3 RCMP cars here. And what they were doing here, I had no idea, but I knew there had to be something up. They weren't out here picking up fares.
If you've seen the movie A Series of Unfortunate Events, you may recognize this as also being the accent that noted Canadian actor Jim Carrey used when he was playing the sea captain guy.
Oh, that there was only my fault. Hey, well, I can't tell you how sorry I is for running into your sister there like that.
Newfoundland.
It's so funny because if no one had told me about Newfoundland or I had just heard those clips in isolation, I would have straight away just guessed the Irish accent. I'm so surprised. I mean, it makes sense, of course. Newfoundland and Nova Scotia were like the first ports of call for people emigrating from the UK and from Great Britain. So it's after all this time, it's like amazing to me that sound in the language still maintains.
People also have a habit of using a lot of weird Newfoundland slang, which when coupled with their accent can make them really hard to understand, as satirized in this Nissan commercial.
They say an extra ale Bonavista. Take again or that Penrith, buddy. But that don't put a gust in your spinnaker, I don't know what would. And look at the wheels on her. Got enough alloy in there to fill a bucket.
Now a lot of
Tell me about any Canadian slang as well, man. Of course in the UK we've got a lot of like slang, a lot of rude slang as well, but tell me some famous or interesting Canadian slang.
French Canadians speak English as their second language, so they obviously have a French accent, but the sort of French accent they have is quite different than the sort of accent French people from France have. In France, people with strong French accents tend to substitute T sounds for Z sounds, so words like this and that and those become zis and zat and zos. In Canada, where French is spoken in a sort of more nasally way, French accents tend to use harder D sounds, so dis and dat and those. See if you can notice the difference.
This description might seem unfair for the previous generation, but keep in mind that I am not really criticizing the people.
We want 4 things in the throne speech. We want to clarify this issue about Afghanistan. It's so important. It's really important for us. The other one is we have a bill.
Of course.
That is very interesting. Again, something I never knew about. Like, you can really hear the difference between those two versions. Tell me if there's any differences between Canadian French and French, like as in the words itself rather than just the pronunciation. Is there any words that are unique to Canadian French as well.
In this era of television and the internet, more and more North Americans are starting to lose their regional or class-based accents altogether. Researchers now often speak of standard American English or the general American accent, which is this sort of bland, plain accent you tend to hear from newscasters and actors and anybody else who doesn't want to seem exotic or interesting. As more and more young people are taught to believe that accents are something embarrassing or hickish, you're starting to see entire generations speak exactly the same way. Entire countries too. Check out this montage of young Canadians and Americans and see if you can tell who comes from which country.
If you really want to get in a company that requires more experience, you have a one-up on everyone else that's applying.
With what they give us in my program in particular, like we don't get any seminars or anything like that. It's all lab and lecture.
And I just try to be as versatile as possible. Whatever the team needs, I try to do it. So if they need me at the 5, I'd like to be in the 5.
I'm in kinesiology, and a lot of kin is mostly memorization, which is what I'm used to, which is what I'm good at.
It was a trick. They're all Canadians. Hard to tell though.
Even though Canada and the USA are neighbours, you would imagine there's some like connection there with the language. And even though those people were Canadian, you would maybe think that is the accent of the United States of America as well. I think it's quite different compared to being in like Scotland, being in the UK. We are the same joined to England, but as soon as you go over that border, the language just completely, or the accent just completely changes. It's like almost very abrupt, man, they change. So here, it seems like there's a bit more melding of that language between Canada and the USA. But I guess in both there's very strong accents depending on the province or the state in the USA. You'll still have those strong differences as well. So tell me about that. Tell me what's your favourite accent in Canada apart from your own. Be very interested to know that and why. But yeah, Canada's an awesome country, and even their language is awesome as well. Thanks.